Hello, thank you for watching my video. Please feel free to like, subscribe and comment. Towards the end of William the Conqueror's 21-year reign, the old king was having some trouble. After a strong-handed rule over England, William's main issues now lie on the continent and in his Duchy of Normandy. A dispute had arisen between William and his oldest son, Robert, in the 1070s, who, having initially made up with his father in the early 1080s, decided to cause trouble again later on in the 1080s. This was a politically dangerous situation for William, and it was made even worse by the fact that Robert was allied with the King of France, Philip I, who'd like nothing more than to get one over the overmighty King of England. However, try as he might to be the same formidable king he was in his younger years, William could not douse the flames of rebellion easily, and at some point in 1087, the year he died, William was in Normandy when he had to have an extended period of rest. It's not entirely clear why, but William, by this point, was a rather large man and approaching 60. Campaigning would have become extremely difficult for him, and these are certainly contributing factors to his delayed progress. For a man such as William, this would have all been quite depressing. And what would have stung his pride even further was the mockery that came his way from Philip I, who compared him to a woman resting, having just given birth. Finally, the old king managed to stir himself, and in typically ferocious fashion he stormed the town of Mons, near Paris, causing great damage. Perhaps feeling he was serving revenge on the French king, William was relentless in his destruction of the town, but it was here that he would meet his end. There are two different stories on how William the Conqueror died. One is that his horse leapt up suddenly to avoid a ditch, which thrust William forwards in his seat, and he penetrated his stomach with his saddle. Or, in my opinion more likely, is the story that he was thrown from his horse after the animal had stepped on a hot ash from the flames that was now emanating from the town that William and his men were besieging. A fall such as this was going to be fatal for an overweight, aging man who had recently suffered from some other affliction. It was an undignified way to go out for a man who had made such a remarkable imprint on history. But unfortunately for William, his story doesn't end there. William's corpse was taken to Caen for burial. His funeral was initially interrupted by a man coming with grievances against the church where William's service was being held. To basically shut him up, William's youngest son, Henry, paid the man off. And then came one final indignity for the Conqueror. William's body had proved to be too big for the tomb that he was supposed to be buried in. Rather than accepting facts, the men that were burying him continued to try and force the body in until it essentially exploded. The result was a smell that everyone in attendance wouldn't forget in a hurry. It was so bad that people are said to have fled desperately for the doors. On his deathbed, it's said that William had been racked with guilt, with the harrying of the north of England, where his Norman knights had massacred a large portion of the northern population, at the forefront of his mind. Was this divine retribution? There would have been those at the time who certainly thought so. Either way, this has to be one of the most pathetic deaths of any monarch ever. William was a fat man who had fallen off his horse. His corpse had burst, he had stunk out his own funeral, And what was even worse is that of his three remaining sons, only one was there to witness it. Robert still had his grievances, and William, who became William II of England, had already headed for his new kingdom. This was the end of one of medieval Europe's most famous conquering kings.